Ethan Cross had learned long ago that silence could be louder than anger. As he walked through the central hall of Valari Prime, the silence followed him like a shadow. Tall crystalline pillars rose toward the ceiling, glowing softly with living light, and dozens of Valari stood along the sides of the hall. None of them spoke. Many did not even look at him directly. But their thoughts were clear enough. The human was making a mistake. At Ethan's side walked Lyrian Vielle. She was smaller than the others of her kind, her steps careful and measured. Where most Violari moved with graceful strength, Lyrian moved as if the air itself was heavy. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and faint lines of light beneath it pulsed weakly, as though her energy core struggled to stay steady. To the Valari, these signs meant only one thing: weak, frail, unfit. Lyrian kept her eyes lowered, not out of shame, but habit. She had learned early that meeting too many gazes only invited pain. Whispers, dismissive looks, quiet laughter that no one ever admitted to. She had endured it for most of her life. What she had not expected was a human who chose to stand beside her. Ethan slowed his pace slightly so she would not have to rush. He did not guide her or support her physically, but his presence was steady, deliberate. He wanted her to walk under her own strength, however limited others thought it was. The hall they entered was not a courtroom, but it felt like one. Members of the Valari Council stood elevated at the far end, their tall forms glowing brightly with health and power. Behind them, star charts and ancient symbols shimmered in the air. One of the counselors stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp. "Ethan Cross of Earth," she said. "You have requested recognition of a cross-species union. State your intent clearly." "State your intent." Ethan raised his head and spoke without hesitation. "I intend to marry Lyrian Vielle, with full legal and cultural recognition from both our peoples." A ripple moved through the hall. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to feel. Lyrian's fingers twitched at her side, but she did not step back. The counselor's eyes shifted to her, then away again. "She is classified unfit," the counselor said flatly. "She possesses no measurable defensive value, no political standing, and limited biological stability. This union offers no benefit." Ethan nodded once. "I understand your assessment." Another counselor leaned forward. "Then explain why you persist." For a brief moment, Ethan looked at Lyrian. Not with pity, not with concern, but with quiet certainty. "Because your assessment is wrong," he said. That drew attention. The Valari were not used to being contradicted, especially not by humans. Humanity was respected for adaptability and resilience, but they were still considered younger, less refined. The counselor's glow brightened slightly, a sign of irritation. "Our classifications are based on thousands of cycles of biological data. So are your myths," Ethan replied. "So are your sealed archives." The hall grew still. Lyrian finally looked up, her eyes widening just a little. She had not known how much he knew. She had not wanted to ask. The council did not respond immediately. Instead, the lead counselor gestured. "This hearing is concluded. The union will be reviewed. Until then, you are dismissed." Dismissed. Not denied. Not accepted. Ethan inclined his head respectfully and turned away. Lyrian followed, her steps unsteady but determined. As they exited the hall, the silence returned, heavier than before. Once they were alone in the outer corridor, Lyrian finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost fragile, but clear. "You didn't need to challenge them," she said. "It will only make things harder for you." Ethan smiled slightly. "Hard doesn't mean wrong." She hesitated, then asked the question that had lived in her chest for weeks. "Why me?" He stopped walking. Around them, the corridor curved outward into a transparent wall that looked over the city. Valari Prime spread beneath them, a vast world of light and motion. Ships moved like distant sparks through the sky. Ethan did not answer immediately. He chose his words carefully, the way he always did when the truth mattered. "Because when everyone else saw weakness," he said, I saw something that scared them enough to bury it. Lyrian's breath caught. She turned away, gripping the edge of the railing. You shouldn't say that out loud. I know, he said gently. But you should know I don't see you the way they do. Her shoulders trembled. Not from emotion alone, but from the effort of holding herself steady. They are right about one thing, she said quietly. I am fragile. Ethan stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. Fragile things can still hold immense value. Sometimes they hold it because they are fragile. That night, as HFY Prime entered its rest cycle, Lyrian sat alone in her chamber. The room was simple, designed to minimize strain on her body. Soft light, stable temperature, constant energy regulation. She placed a hand over her chest. The pressure was there, as always. The contained force that never slept. The reason she tired easily. The reason she was forbidden from training. From service. From anything that might push her limits. The reason she had been labeled weak. Her thoughts drifted to childhood memories she rarely allowed herself to revisit. The elders' concerned voices. The medical scans that showed numbers too high. Too dangerous. The word they used when they thought she could not hear. Burden. She had accepted it. What choice had she had? A soft chime broke her thoughts. A message request. Ethan. She hesitated, then accepted. The screen showed him seated in his quarters, data pads spread around him. He looked tired, but focused. I hope I'm not disturbing you, he said. No, she replied. I couldn't rest anyway. He studied her expression for a moment. They won't make this easy. She gave a faint smile. They never do. Ethan leaned back slightly. I want you to know something. If at any point you want to stop this process, we will. I won't push you into anything. Lyrian met his gaze. And if I want to continue, then I'll stand with you, he said, no matter what they say. After the call ended, Lyrian sat quietly for a long time. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her knowing the truth, not despite it. Elsewhere in the city, deep beneath the council chambers, ancient systems activated for the first time in centuries. Encrypted archives stirred as unauthorized access codes unlocked long-forgotten records. Patterns emerged. Genetic markers, energy signatures. On a distant council display, a single line of ancient HFY script appeared, unseen by any living counselor. The bearer has returned. Far above, unaware of the systems awakening beneath her feet, Lyrian lay down and closed her eyes. The galaxy still believed she was weak. It would not believe that for much longer. Morning on HFY Prime did not arrive with a sunrise the way it did on Earth. Instead, the sky slowly brightened from deep violet to soft silver, as if the planet itself was waking gently. Light filtered through the crystalline towers of the capital, reflecting in long patterns across the streets. Lyrian woke already tired. That was normal. Her body always felt heavy in the early cycle, as if gravity pressed harder on her alone. She sat up slowly on the edge of her resting platform and waited for the dizziness to pass. When it did, she stood and moved toward the window. From here, she could see movement across the city. HFY citizens beginning their routines, flowing with natural strength and energy. They did not stumble. They did not pause to steady their breathing. She rested her palm against the cool surface of the glass. Somewhere in the city, Ethan was already awake. Humans adjusted quickly to HFY time cycles, and he had work today. Officially, he was a xenolinguist. Unofficially, he was becoming something far more dangerous to the old order. Below the calm surface of the city, tension was growing. In the council chambers, the elders gathered again. This meeting was not public. No observers, no recordings shared with the population, only the inner circle, glowing brighter than usual with agitation. She should never have been allowed into the hearing, one counselor said. Her presence alone undermines our standards. Another replied, the human insists on this union. If we refuse outright, it may damage relations. The damage is internal, a third snapped. If the people see an unfit elevated through marriage, it questions everything. Silence followed. Finally, the eldest counselor spoke, her glow dim but steady. There is another concern. Our deep archives were accessed last night. Several heads turned. That is impossible, someone said. Those systems are sealed. They were sealed, the elder replied. Human access codes were used. Old ones. From cooperative research centuries ago. The room grew colder. The human knows, one counselor whispered. No, the elder said slowly. The human suspects. Across the city, Ethan stood in a restricted archive chamber, staring at data streams scrolling faster than any Violari system was designed to allow. Human software overlaid ancient Violari records, translating fragments that had been deliberately obscured. He was not smiling. What you buried wasn't just history, he murmured. It was fear. The records spoke of beings called null bearers. Rare individuals born with the ability to disrupt energy at a fundamental level. Not absorb it. Not redirect it. Erase it. Valari civilization had nearly collapsed the last time too many null bearers existed at once. Entire fleets had gone silent. Defense grids failed. Even Valari technology could not fully shield against them. So the solution had been simple and cruel. Suppress, isolate, redefine. Over generations, the truth faded into myth. Those born with unstable energy signatures were labeled weak. Their potential never tested. Their abilities never allowed to develop. Ethan closed the archive. They didn't make you weak, he said quietly. They made you safe for themselves. That same cycle, Lyrian was summoned to a medical evaluation. 2 attendants escorted her through white corridors into a chamber filled with soft light and humming instruments. Medical drones hovered, scanning her energy output. The lead physician did not meet her eyes. This is a routine check, the physician said. Given recent events, Lyrian nodded and lay down as instructed. The scanners activated. Beams passing through her body. At first, everything appeared normal. Then the instruments began to fluctuate. Numbers climbed. Warning symbols appeared, quickly muted by manual overrides. The physician stiffened. Lower the scan depth. If we do that, an assistant whispered. We won't see. Lower it, the physician repeated. Lyrian felt the pressure increase in her chest. A familiar sensation, like holding back a storm with fragile walls. Her fingers curled against the platform. Stop, she said softly. The room froze. I said stop, she repeated, louder now. The physician hesitated, then deactivated the scanners. The room fell silent, except for Lyrian's slow breathing. You are exceeding acceptable limits, the physician said sharply. You should not have spoken. Lyrian sat up with effort. You were pushing the scan beyond safety. That decision is not yours. She looked at the physician, really looked. It always has been. She left the chamber without waiting for dismissal. Word of the incident spread quickly, though details were carefully distorted. By the time it reached public channels, the story was simple. The unfit had acted out. Later that cycle, the crisis began. It started at the edge of Violari-controlled space. Long-range sensors detected unfamiliar ships exiting fold space without proper identification. Their hull designs did not match any known species within treaty networks. The first alert reached the Council within minutes. These vessels are ignoring communication attempts, a commander reported. They are moving toward Violari Prime. The Council reacted as they always had. Committees formed, protocols activated, defensive positions calculated. But the ships did not behave as expected. They did not advance directly. Instead, they released probes, small, fast-moving constructs that slipped past outer defenses and began mapping energy flows across the system. They are studying us, someone said. Ethan was summoned immediately. When he arrived at the command center, he took in the situation with a human's instinctive speed. They're not testing your weapons, he said. They're testing your infrastructure. The Valari commanders bristled at his tone, but none contradicted him. If they disable your energy grids, Ethan continued, your cities go dark without a single shot fired. What do you suggest? A commander asked. Adapt, Ethan said. Don't wait. As human and Violari forces coordinated uneasily, Lyrian felt it before any alert reached her. The pressure inside her surged. She staggered, gripping the wall of her chamber as her containment field strained. Lights flickered, not just in her room, but across the building. Her breathing quickened. She knew this feeling. It had only happened once before, when she was a child and an experimental reactor malfunctioned nearby. Energy disturbance. External. She reached for the communicator at her wrist and opened a channel to Ethan. "They're close," she said the moment the connection opened. Ethan straightened on the screen. "You can feel them?" "Yes," she whispered. "They're touching the system." He went very still. "Lyrian, listen to me carefully. Do not try to do anything." "I'm not," she said. "I can't." But even as she spoke, the pressure increased. In orbit, one of the unknown probes brushed against a planetary relay. The effect was immediate. Shields across the capital flickered and failed for a fraction of a second. That fraction was enough. Lyrian cried out as her containment faltered. Energy surged through her like a breaking wave. The lights in her chamber shattered. Every device went dark. Across the city, systems shut down in cascading failure. In the command center, alarm screamed. "What's happening?" a Valerie officer shouted. Ethan stared at the readings. They triggered a resonance cascade. "Can we stop it?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Not with your tech." On a private channel, he spoke urgently. "Lyrian, are you safe?" She was on her knees, hands pressed to the floor, breathing hard. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I can't hold it much longer." Ethan made a decision that would change everything. "Then don't hold it alone," he said. In the council chamber, ancient systems fully awakened. Seals shattered. Data streams flooded screens no one had touched in centuries. The words glowed in ancient script. "The bearer is active." As enemy ships adjusted their formation, confident in the chaos they had caused, something else began to move within Vylari Prime. Not a weapon, not a fleet. A truth that had been denied for generations. And at the center of it all, the girl everyone called weak struggled to breathe, unaware that the galaxy had just forced her to choose. The command center shook as systems failed one after another. Holographic displays blinked out, replaced by raw warning lights and unfamiliar symbols. Vylari officers moved with forced calm. But fear had begun to show in the way their light flickered unevenly. Ethan Cross did not wait for permission. "Open a direct channel to all human vessels in the system," he said. "Priority override." A Vylari commander hesitated. "That authority." "I know," Ethan cut in. "I'm taking responsibility." The channel opened. Human ships, fewer in number than the Vylari fleet but far more flexible in design, responded instantly. Captains spoke over one another, voices sharp and focused. Ethan gave orders quickly, using simple language and clear intent. "They're not here to fight ship to ship. They're attacking energy flow. Switch to isolated power loops. Manual control where possible. Protect the cities first, not the fleets." Humans moved without argument. Across Vylari Prime, emergency lighting came back online in scattered areas, as human engineers rerouted power through systems the attackers had not anticipated. It was not elegant. It was not perfect. But it worked. Deep within a secured medical wing, Lyrian lay on the floor, shaking. The pressure inside her had become unbearable. Every breath felt like it might tear something apart. Her containment field flickered in and out. No longer able to fully restrain what lived within her, she remembered being a child, screaming as elders surrounded her, their voices urgent and afraid. She remembered the devices they had attached to her body, the words they used again and again. Control, suppression, stability, never understanding, never asking how it felt. Her communicator buzzed weakly against her wrist. She forced her eyes open and focused. Ethan's face appeared, tense but steady. "I'm here," he said. "You're not alone." "I can't stop it," she whispered. "If it breaks free." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm asking you not to suppress it. Not completely." Her eyes widened in panic. "That will kill me." "It might," he said honestly. "If you do it the way they taught you." She clenched her jaw, tears forming from pain and fear. "Then what do I do?" Ethan took a slow breath. "You don't fight it. You shape it. Small steps. Focus on what's touching the planet first. The probes. Not the ships. Not everything. Lyrian gasped as another surge hit her. I don't know how. You do, Ethan said softly. They just never let you try. In orbit, the enemy fleet adjusted again. Their probes pulsed with alien energy, sinking to Veilari systems with growing precision. From their perspective, the operation was proceeding perfectly. The planet's defenses were collapsing without resistance. Then one probe went silent. No explosion, no signal, just gone. The enemy commanders paused, confused. Diagnostics showed nothing wrong with the probe. It had simply ceased to exist as an energy signature. Then a second probe vanished, and a third. On Veilari Prime, Lyrian screamed as she reached outward for the first time in her life. Not with anger, not with fear, but with intention. She did not release everything. She did not lash out blindly. She followed the pressure, tracing it to where it did not belong, where foreign energy touched Veilari systems like a parasite. Her power responded. The probes did not explode. They unraveled. Their energy fields collapsed inward, erased at a level the enemy had never encountered. Lyrian collapsed back against the floor, gasping. It worked, she whispered in disbelief. Ethan let out a breath he had been holding. Yes, it did. In the command center, Veilari sensors struggled to interpret what had just happened. What weapon was that? A commander demanded. Ethan shook his head. It wasn't a weapon. Another wave of probes advanced. Lyrian felt them like needles against her skin. This time, she did not wait. She reached out again. The effort burned. Her vision blurred. But she learned with every moment. Adjusting. Refining. She did not erase everything at once. She created gaps. Dead zones. Places where energy simply could not hold shape. Human ships adapted instantly, steering enemy fire into those dead zones, watching weapons fail mid-discharge. Veilari gunners stared in shock as enemy systems flickered uselessly. For the first time, the attackers hesitated. They're losing control of the field, an enemy officer reported. Their energy patterns are being neutralized. How? Their commander demanded. We don't know, came the answer. There's no source we can target, because there was no emitter. There was only a living being, kneeling on a darkened floor, fighting to breathe while holding back a power that should never have been buried. The Veilari Council watched the battle unfold from their sealed chamber. Ancient displays glowed with data they barely understood. The eldest counselor's light dimmed with realization. She is not unstable, she whispered. She is constrained. One by one, the other counselors understood the truth they had denied for generations. Their fear had not protected them. It had crippled them. Lyrian's strength faltered. Her hands shook violently now, her body reaching its limit. She could feel cracks forming. Not physical, but something deeper. I can't keep this up, she told Ethan. It's too much. Ethan's voice was firm but kind. Then we changed the problem. He turned to the command center. Human vessels switched to close escort around the planet. Veilari fleet, pull back and hold position. The Veilari commanders hesitated, then obeyed. What are you doing? One demanded. Giving her room, Ethan said. She doesn't need to stop the whole fleet. Just open a path. Lyrian focused on the largest concentration of enemy energy, not the entire armada, just the core relay ship coordinating the probes. She reached. The effort nearly broke her. But the result was immediate. The relay ship went dark. Without coordination, the remaining probes drifted uselessly. Enemy ships faltered, their formations breaking as systems failed one by one. Silence spread through space. The enemy commander stared at the void where their control ship had been. Retreat, they ordered, fear finally breaking through their confidence. The fleet withdrew, limping back into fold space, leaving behind confusion and unanswered questions. On Veilari Prime, power slowly returned to the cities. Emergency systems stabilized. Lives were saved. In the medical wing, attendants rushed into Lyrian's chamber, weapons forgotten as they took in the scene. She lay unconscious, breathing shallowly. Ethan arrived moments later, pushing past them without hesitation. He knelt beside her, placing a hand over hers. She's alive, a physician said quietly, checking her vitals. Barely. Ethan closed his eyes in relief. In the council chamber, no one spoke. The truth was undeniable now. The one they had called weak had defended their world when their strength failed, and she had not done it alone. Human adaptability, human trust, and human refusal to accept old limits had changed the outcome of a battle no one else knew how to fight. As Lyrian was moved to recovery, ancient Vailari records updated themselves automatically, as if responding to her existence. A forgotten classification reappeared in the system, glowing softly. Not unfit, not burden, bearer. And as the galaxy began to realize what had truly happened at Valeri Prime, one thing became clear to every observer watching the data streams. Humanity had not brought a weapon into the war. They had brought understanding, and that terrified the stars. Silence followed the retreat of the enemy fleet. It was not the peaceful kind. It was the kind that came after fear had burned itself out, leaving only questions behind. Valeri Prime slowly returned to life. Lights stabilized. Transit lanes reopened. Emergency signals faded one by one. Across the planet, citizens emerged from shelters and paused in the streets, looking up at the sky as if expecting it to break again. It did not. In the medical recovery wing, Lyrian lay surrounded by soft light and steady instruments. Her breathing was shallow but regular. The violent surges inside her had settled into a low, controlled pressure, like a storm finally contained by stronger walls. Ethan had not left her side. He sat in a simple chair, elbows resting on his knees, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. For the first time since the crisis began, his expression showed exhaustion. Humans were resilient, but even they had limits. A Vailari physician approached quietly. "She will recover," the physician said. "Her systems are stabilizing." Ethan let out a breath he felt like he had been holding for years. "How long?" "Several cycles," the physician replied. "Perhaps longer." What she did should not have been possible. Ethan looked at Lyrian. "It was always possible," he said softly. "You just never let her try." The physician did not argue. Word of what had happened spread quickly, even though the council tried to control the narrative. Vailari citizens were not blind. They had felt the blackout. They had seen enemy ships fail without explosions, without visible weapons. They asked questions, and this time, the answers could not be buried. In the council chamber, the elders gathered once more. The atmosphere had changed. Their light no longer burned with authority alone. It flickered with uncertainty, and something else that had been absent for generations: shame. "The records confirm it," one counselor said quietly. "She matches the ancient classification exactly." "The bearers were never weak," another added. "They were dangerous to control." The eldest counselor closed her eyes. "And so we chose fear over understanding." No one disagreed. "For generations," the eldest continued, "we labeled them unfit. We confined them. We suppressed them. And when the galaxy tested us, we failed." A pause followed. Then, a decision. "The designation, unfit, is hereby abolished," the eldest said, "effective immediately." The words echoed through the chamber, transmitted to every public channel on Vailari Prime. Citizens stopped where they stood. Some gasped. Some cried. Some simply stared in disbelief. "For too long," the broadcast continued, "we have measured worth by visible strength alone. That ends now." Across the city, Lyrian's name spread in whispers, then in open voices, not as a burden, as a protector. As she recovered, Lyrian drifted in and out of consciousness. In those quiet moments between sleep and waking, she felt something unfamiliar: space. For the first time in her life, the pressure inside her was not crushing. It was present, yes, but calmer, responsive. When she finally opened her eyes fully, Ethan was there. She blinked, focusing slowly. "You look terrible," she whispered. He smiled. "You saved a planet. I think I'm allowed to look tired." Her fingers moved weakly, searching. He took her hand at once. 8. "Did it work?" she asked. "It worked," he said. "They're gone." She closed her eyes again, relief washing over her face. I was afraid I would destroy everything." "You didn't," Ethan said firmly. "You protected it." She turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze. "They know now." "Yes," he said. "And they can't unknow it." Days passed, then weeks. Lyrian grew stronger, slowly and carefully. This time, the training she received was not designed to suppress her abilities, but to help her understand them. Human specialists worked alongside Veilari scientists, sharing methods that focused on balance rather than control through fear. It was not easy. There were setbacks, moments of pain, moments of doubt, but there was progress. And always, Ethan was there. When Lyrian was finally cleared to leave the medical wing, the city did something no one had planned. They gathered, not in neat formations, not in official ceremonies, but in quiet crowds lining the streets as she and Ethan walked together through the capital. No one shouted. No one bowed. They simply watched, some with awe, some with regret, some with hope. Lyrian felt exposed at first, her steps hesitant. Then Ethan slowed, matching her pace as he always did. "They're not judging you," he said gently. "They're learning." She took a steadying breath and lifted her head. Later, in a formal session broadcast across multiple systems, the Veilari Council addressed the galaxy. They spoke of the attack, of their failures, of the truth they had buried. They spoke Lyrian's name, not as a weapon, as a person. Ethan stood beside her as the council officially recognized their union. There were no elaborate rituals, no displays of dominance. Just a simple acknowledgement of partnership, witnessed by two worlds. When the ceremony ended, a human observer summarized it best in a single, quiet statement, shared across networks. "Humanity didn't marry power," the message said. "We married potential." The galaxy listened. In the months that followed, other species began reviewing their own classifications, their own discarded populations, their own quiet injustices. Human diplomats were invited everywhere, not because humans were the strongest, but because they asked different questions. One evening, as Veilari Prime settled into its gentle night cycle, Lyrian and Ethan stood together on a balcony, overlooking the city. "I used to think my life would be very small," Lyrian said. "Quiet. Hidden." Ethan shook his head. "You were never meant to be small." She smiled faintly. "You knew." "I suspected," he replied. "But knowing doesn't matter without trust." She leaned against him, careful but unafraid. "What happens now?" "Now?" Ethan looked out at the stars. "Now we make sure no one else is ever called weak, just because they're different." Far above them, ships moved through the night sky. Not in fear, not in secrecy, but in open transit, carrying a new idea across the stars. That strength is not always loud. That power does not always look like force. And that humanity's greatest weapon has never been technology or numbers. It has always been the courage to see worth where others refuse to look. The galaxy would remember Veilari Prime not as the place where an enemy was defeated, but as the place where a lie finally broke. And at the center of that change stood a woman once called Frail, standing beside a human who chose her not because of what she could do, but because he believed in who she was.